a kind of recap of the month, kind of final reminder, which we usually get for the last couple of years. We've been getting anyways, because the months have always been 30. For the last couple of years have been 30 days, so I always had that extra day. But it looks like this year we may not be getting that, so I'll plan for the 29th being the last morning, wallahu alam. So I'll try and finish today. If we don't, then maybe a small piece will be left for Saturday, and I'll do it then, and then perform a little bit of a reminder, inshallah, for the month. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us the barakah of what's left of Ramadan, and grant us the barakah of witnessing Ramadan after Ramadan, inshallah, for a long time. Allahumma ameen. The final piece, or the conclusion of Surat Al-Saffat, which is what we're going to be reciting this morning, inshallah ta'ala, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala points out a number of aspects of ghaib that people continue to meddle with. People are playing around with and speaking about things that they have no knowledge of, causing any confusion amongst themselves, and distracting themselves from that which they should be focused on. And this is the problem with aspects of ghaib. When we talk about ghaib, and I do this little bit of an introduction before we go through this final piece. When you talk about ghaib, you have to be very, very careful of what you say and how you say it. Because ghaib is something that you have no observational skills or opportunities to draw from. When someone talks to you, when you learn something that exists within the measurable world, or the observable universe that we're a part of, then when you're taught the topic or the concept, all it really takes is for you to observe it and analyze it, and then you have your own input. You're able to kind of talk about it yourself and add things to it, and maybe describe and draw analogies, etc. You can do a lot, because this is something that you have the skill set and the tools to witness and think about. And your brain is healthy and functional, so you're able to add things. But when it comes to ghaib, when it comes to the unseen, this is not something that you have access to. You don't know anything about this. Not you, none of us do. We know nothing about this, aside from what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala explains to us. What He explains to us subhanahu wa ta'ala is what we know. So we have to understand our parameters about the world of the unseen. Our parameters are the teachings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and what the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam added to it in his authentic tradition. Outside of that, we don't know anything about ghaib. So when you start talking about it, and adding things to it, and drawing analogies, and you're making things up. And making things up about this realm is very dangerous. It causes a lot of problems. And it can be, it's the core, it's the seed of superstition. And it's the seed of false beliefs. And ibtida' fil i'tiqad. When we see that there are deviations when it comes to i'tiqad, it starts from those who talk about things that they don't understand and they don't fully comprehend, and they don't have a way to actually. Imam al-Tahawi in his Aqidah, which is one of the oldest and most authentic pieces of literature written within our deen, قال في العالم في الوجود علمان علم موجود وعلم مفقود فمن ترك العلم الموجود وتتبع العلم المفقود خسر دينه ودنياه وآخرته. That's what he said He said there are two types of knowledge in this world. Knowledge that is available, readily available to you, and knowledge that is not, that is lost. Meaning it's lost for you, meaning you don't have access to it. And there's knowledge that you have. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala taught you certain things of this world and of the hereafter. So you know them. And then there are things that He did not teach you, and you don't have the ability to learn. So if you follow that, if you decide that you're going to go and pursue knowledge that you don't have access to, you don't have the tools to learn, and you leave the knowledge that you have, then you will lose your life, your deen, your faith, your dunya, and your akhirah. You'll lose it all. And this is what Surat Al-Saffat, to a certain degree, is trying to explain to us. To focus on that which you have access to and which you can actually learn. And leave that which you don't understand. And sallim ila Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And submit and surrender to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala the knowledge of that which you don't understand and that which you don't witness. Which is why you're going to see the theme of tasbih increasing as we go along. Like we saw it twice in the surah come up, the concept of tasbih. And we're going to see it 2 more times towards the end of the surah. Because the solution for this problem, or the way to get out of this trap that you can fall into, is understanding what tasbih means, exalting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is the ability to acknowledge and recognize that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not similar to us as creations. We are not similar to Him subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we are not able to draw analogies from ourselves to Him or from Him to us subhanahu wa ta'ala. And because of that, we cannot hold Him we can't hold ourselves to His standard, nor can we hold Him to ours, Jalla Jalaluhu. And understanding that, you see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as a being, not as a creation, as a being that is superior to you, that is beyond you. You do not see Him to be flawed. You do not see Him to be faulted. You don't blame Him for anything that you don't understand. And you don't go beyond the parameters that He draws for you. That's what tasbih is. It's exaltation. That, Ya Rabb, whatever I don't like, I am going to hold myself accountable for it, not you. Whatever I don't understand, I'm not going to question you. I'm going to question myself and my limited knowledge. This is the cornerstone of being Muslim. This is the cornerstone. This is what makes you different. It's why it's the aspect of your belief that sets you aside, sets you apart from not just non-religious people, from other religious people as well. And I spent a portion of my life where I loved to debate. I don't do that anymore. Life is too short, honestly, to do it. I wish I learned that earlier. It's a waste of breath. But when I did it, I would debate people from different backgrounds. Having part of my family being from a different faith altogether, it became an interest of mine to kind of. And even those who are extremely religious, who follow different faiths, what you find is that their understanding of God is very different. How they comprehend God is not how you do it. And sometimes it's hard to actually hold a conversation with them because when they start talking about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's almost borderline offensive to me. And to you, if you were to hear it, you get very, no, we don't use those terms to describe God. And we don't take His name in vain. And He's not an issue. There's nothing funny about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we carry when we speak of Him subhanahu wa ta'ala. But when you hear other faiths talk about Him, they're way more loose. They're way more laid back in how they talk about the Almighty subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that comes from this basic difference of tasbih. You don't allow for that because Allah subhanahu, He is the exalted. He is not similar to me. I dare not speak of Him as I speak of someone else. I dare not see Him as I see others. And I do not equate Him in my tongue with my tongue or my words as I would speak to someone else. Now, for our deen, we don't even speak to the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam that way. We don't even call him by his name alayhi salatu wasalam. We don't even see him as a person. We make sure that his status is clear. What about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as a whole? Not even, of course not. Jalla Jalalullah, never. If for people, this is the adab that the Muslims have, is how they speak about their scholars and how they speak about their teachers and about their leaders and their imams, and how they speak about their Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam and the Prophets alayhi salatu wasalam ajma'een. There's a certain degree of respect and status that is offered. And then you speak about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that's a whole different level. So that's a part of how we understand our deen, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, tasbih, the exaltation of the Almighty subhanahu wa ta'ala. And you exalt Him when He talks to you about ghaib, when He asks you to do something that you don't understand. Subhanak, of course, whatever you tell me. Whatever you tell me. I'm going to give you an example so you understand how this works. Isa alayhi salam taught his people Tawheed. He brought them Tawheed. That's all He brought them. And He made sure it was very clear to them that this was what He was teaching. It was Tawheed. It was La ilaha illallah. He spent all of His life dedicated to teaching them Tawheed. He is gone. People do the absolute opposite of what He taught them to do, and they use Him as this target of it. Like if they became pagans, Allah al-Musta'an, fine. But no, they made Him the idol. They turned Him into it. And they started actually calling Him the Son of God and God. The opposite of what He spent all of His life teaching them to do. Yawm al-Qiyamah, Isa alayhi salam, what is He going to say? He's going to be held accountable. Ya Isa ibn Maryam, أَأَنْتَ قُلْتَ لِلنَّاسِ اتَّخِذُونِي وَأُمِّيَ إِلَهَيْنِ مِن دُونِ اللَّهِ Jesus, son of Mary, do you tell people to choose me and my mother as gods aside from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or with Allah? So what was his answer? This is something that he had nothing to do with. He did the absolute opposite of. He spent all of his life teaching the opposite, and he's dealing with an outcome that he is innocent of, that he did not contribute to. What was his answer? قال سبحانك. Subhanak, you're exalted. I don't understand why this happened. I did not contribute to this. Why this is the outcome, I don't know. But Subhanak, there must be a reason, and there must be a wisdom behind it that I don't understand. Subhanak, it's not, ما يكون لي. This is how this is why when he uses the word Subhanak Isa alayhi salam. Understanding that I don't know why this is the case. I have no understanding of it at all. I can tell you that my life was dedicated to teaching them the absolute opposite. And if you read the verses in Surah Al-Ma'idah, that's the argument that he makes. So we're going to start reading, inshallah, the final piece of Surah Al-Saffat, and some of the concepts that are explained here from Ayah 149 of Surah Al-Saffat. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. فاستفتهم ألربك البنات ولهم البنون أم خلقنا الملائكة إناثا وهم شاهدون ألا إنهم من إفكهم ليقولون ولد الله وإنهم لكاذبون أصطفى البنات على البنين ما لكم كيف تحكمون أفلا تذكرون أم لكم سلطان مبين فأتوا بكتابكم إن كنتم صادقين وجعلوا بينه وبين الجنة نسبا ولقد علمت الجنة إنهم لمحضرون سبحان الله عما يصفون إلا عباد الله المخلصين فاستفتهم. Ask them for a fatwa, basically. Ask them their opinion. Let them explain to you. فاستفتهم. Ask them. أَلِرَبِّكَ الْبَنَاتُ وَلَهُمُ الْبَنُونَ. That this claim that they make, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, all of his, so this is what they claimed. They claimed that God had children, and his children were the angels, and the angels were all female. وَلَهُمُ الْبَنُونَ. And they were going to only have males. And that's why they performed the horrible act of wad that they would perform to their daughters. And even if they didn't perform it physically to them, they were performing it socially to them. Meaning the women at that time, even if they weren't physically being buried alive, they were socially being buried alive. So it didn't make a difference. And they preferred their sons over their daughters by far, and they granted them inheritance, and they granted them their names, and they didn't do that for their daughters. So they made this up. They wanted to perform some degree of equilibrium between themselves and God. The human being has always been like this. The human being doesn't like the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the exalted and he is not. The human being has always struggled with this. We don't like that we're servants. Our nafs doesn't like it, which is why we talk about this in Tazkiyah Allah, because the nafs doesn't like it. It doesn't like that it's a servant. It doesn't like that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is that powerful, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the omnipotent, the omniscient, and that we are not. We're not even close to that. So throughout history, the human being has always tried to level the playing ground a little bit, either by trying to make himself much better than he is, or to make Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala a little bit less than he is. Jalla Jalal Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wa hasha lahu. But this is what the human being has done. Now, to make yourself stronger or better is hard, aside from comics, which is why we love comics, because it's nice to imagine that you're an X-Man, or maybe that you're like Superman, doing something a little bit beyond what you're capable of doing, because you can think beyond what you can actually physically do. So it's nice to kind of give the human being a little bit of an edge. some superpowers, lasers out of the eyeballs, flying in this. It's nice. It's nice to think that way. That's why it's so popular. So we try to make, and every comic series, by the way, keeps on growing in terms of their superheroes until they make a superhero that's similar to the attributes of God. And this is well known within that realm of whoever's interested in this aspect of how the human brain works. Like they'll make superheroes until they make a superhero that literally has attributes that only the Almighty Subhanahu wa Ta'ala would have. Subhanallah and astaghfirullah from that. The other attempt is it's easier. It's just maybe bring them down a notch. Right? Subhanallah, maybe just a little bit less than that. Maybe not to that degree. Which is why we give him a son. They give him a son. Isa. Or maybe make all of his children girls. As if that's something negative. Right? As if it's something negative, but it's what they made up. It's what works for them. So he's asking him, فَاسْتَفْتِهِمْ, asked them, أَلِرَبِّكَ الْبَنَاتُ وَلَهُمُ الْبَنُونَ. They're going to give their Lord the daughters and they're going to take the sons. This is what they're... أَمْ خَلَقَنَا الْمَلَائِكَةَ إِنَاثًا وَهُمْ شَاهِدُونَ. Or were they were witnesses when we created the angels in the form of female? Were they there? They saw this? They witnessed this? Why are you talking about ghaib? What do you know about this? What information do you have? Where are you getting this from? Where are you pulling this from? You witnessed this. You didn't witness it. What are you talking about? أَلَا إِنَّهُمْ مِنْ إِفْكِهِمْ لَيَقُولُونَ. Indeed, they are lying to the point. They allowed themselves to lie so far. Like they went so deep in a lie that they said the following: وَلَدَ اللَّهِ. Allah begot. That God had a child. وَلَدَ اللَّهِ. This is walad here is not a noun, it's a verb. وَلَدَ اللَّهُ. It's a verb. God begot a son or a daughter or whatever. وَلَدَ اللَّهُ. وَإِنَّهُمْ لَكَاذِبُونَ. Indeed, they are liars. أَصْطَفَ الْبَنَاتِ عَلَى الْبَنِينَ. You are when you're choosing for him, you're choosing daughters over sons for him. That's how you see your Lord. Like you look at the genders and you decide that one is superior to the other. You're going to make this up. One is superior to the other, and then you're going to choose the one that you don't think is superior and give it to him, and then take the one that is superior for yourself. This is how you see the problem with this. The problem with this is when you start making things up, you can't stop. You can't stop. So now you have to take it a step further. Now you have to actually make the genders different. In order for this to work, you have to actually decide that one is superior and one is inferior, so that this whole lie actually makes sense or works for you and just compounds. And what does that lead to? When you state that God has daughters and you have sons, it leads to a difference between the two genders. That leads to a social difference. That leads to a problem with behavior. That leads to a problem with treatment. You see, these lies are not benign. When you lie about ghaib, it's not a benign lie. It doesn't end with the lie itself. No, it finds its tentacles, and it enters within lives, and it starts messing around with the values and the principles and the way we see things. أَصْطَفَ الْبَنَاتِ عَلَى الْبَنِينَ مَا لَكُمْ كَيْفَ تَحْكُمُونَ. What's wrong with your judgment? أَفَلَا تَذَكَّرُونَ. Do you not reflect on anything that you're saying? أَمْ لَكُمْ سُلْطَانٌ مُبِينٌ. Or do you have clear evidence? Because if you have clear evidence, that's a whole different story. The moment you're able to provide clear evidence, sultan is a word in Arabic that means a piece of evidence that is undisputed. It is so powerful that the moment it is brought forward, khalas, there's no way to argue it anymore. If there's a murder case and there's a piece of footage that shows the person doing it, khalas, sultan. We don't have to ask anymore. We don't need your confession anymore. We're good. We don't care if you confess now or not. We know that you did it. It's useless. أَمْ لَكُمْ سُلْطَانٌ مُبِينٌ. Or do you have a clear piece of evidence that is undisputed, that is undebatable? Because if you do, that's the only time you can talk about ghaib. The only time we can speak about that which we don't understand or that which we do not see. Or this is when we have clear evidence, which is what this Quran is. This is why we stick to whatever the Quran tells us, whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala explains to us of ghaib. If we did that, we would be in a much better position as an ummah. If we stopped making things up. If we stopped allowing ourselves to believe that which has no evidence for us to believe it, leading to a culture of superstition, a culture of lack of logic and clarity. And that leads to people being mistreated and harmed, and people left without treatment and left without, for years and years and years, blaming things that have nothing to do with anything. Lack of self-accountability that just leads to families being destroyed and lives being ruined. We have to be careful about this. This is an epidemic within our society that we have yet to get rid of, despite my best efforts. We have not been able to remove this from our society and our community. This ongoing superstitious mentality towards everything that goes wrong, everything that doesn't work. Oh, my son won't get married. I'm sure she made sihr for him. And I look at the son and I'm like, I know why he's not married. You want me to tell you? I can tell you why he's not married, but it's going to hurt your feelings. But I know exactly why he's not married. It's not that hard. I'm sorry that you can't see it. I'm sorry that, it's hard sometimes when it's your child or someone that you love. It's hard to see reality for what it is. But because we have this we have this outing, we have this refuge, we can just run towards something that is unexplainable. Just run towards it, and then we don't have to actually face reality. We don't have to sit there and say, we have a problem. This is not going to work until you make some changes here. We have an issue. We're not looking for people who are compatible, and you're not ready to do this yet because you have 1, 2, 3 that you have not fixed. That's hard, and that's not tiring. It's easier if you can just blame something else, something that is not palpable, something that's not measurable, something that we can't do anything about, something that requires no change. That's the easiest thing to blame, is to blame something that we can't change at all. Where we just maybe go to someone who has superpowers and pay them money, and they will, write something on a paper for us, and we'll put it under the pillow, or put it in his tea or something. Some insane behavior that has no basis at all, that he never did, alayhi salatu wasalam, that the Sahaba never did, and they never complained of throughout their lives. Really, it's an issue of just watching how they lived, and this whole issue becomes easier for you to understand when you do that. But this is the harm of talking about ghaib without sultan mubin, without very clear evidence of what you're claiming and what you're talking about. And all of you come from backgrounds where you know what I'm saying is true. You know that if you open this topic amongst certain people, and you say, well, the Sheikh said this, you'll say, the Sheikh doesn't know what he's talking about. We know this. Okay, all right, continue. What can I do? We're going to have to continue walking this until the next generation comes up and figures out this is actually that's not a part of our deen. It's not a part of our deen. You know when this all started? I'm sorry. This started 300 years after he died, alayhi salatu wasalam. After he passed away, 300 years later, this became, exorcisms were talked about for the first time within the Muslim Ummah. We didn't have exorcisms before that. That wasn't a part of our faith. You know why? Because 300 years later, the number of people who accepted Islam from Judaism and Christianity was much higher. And a lot of them were accepting Islam, and they were scholars of their own faiths. So they were coming into Islam with their luggage. They brought all of their cultural baggage with them. And they brought with them these concepts, because if you want to know about exorcism, just go to Catholicism and look into it. They have priests who are specifically trained for this. It's its own knowledge, it's its own science for them. There are ways to do it, there are ways to perform it, so they brought that with them. And we found it became slowly a part of our own consciousness as Muslims. But we never noticed that this did not come from the Prophet ﷺ's teachings. It's not a Quranic concept. It came foreign to us. It came to us from a foreign source that we don't actually have any evidence to support that it would happen. And there's a lot of things in Islam that are similar right now. Like a lot within our deen, there's a lot of common beliefs and cultural beliefs that really don't stem from the Quran, but they come from other practices. And it's really being able to thread them out. It's hard to talk about this stuff because it offends people really quickly, and it repels them, and they struggle with it because it's a part of their upbringing, and they believe it deeply. But really, it's just not healthy, because it's khawd fil ghaib. It's talking about ghaib without sultan mubin, without clear evidence, without something that you can say, this is very clear. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us this. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us about ghaib, very few things. And He made sure that our connection to it, our relationship with ghaib was very simple. We didn't have to, it doesn't require a surgeon to figure it out, or a rocket science. It's very simple. To make it complicated and make it something that's very difficult to understand and difficult to practice and difficult to fix is just another way of controlling masses and keeping them quiet and keeping them listening and afraid of certain things. That's why He says, أَمْ لَكُمْ سُلْطَانٌ مُبِينٌ فَأْتُوا بِكِتَابِكُمْ إِن كُنتُمْ صَادِقِينَ. Bring the book that says this. Bring the book that says Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose this, and that you get this, and that this this gender is superior to this gender and inferior to that one. Explain. Show me where you brought this from. Show us the evidence that you have for this. In kuntum sadiqin. If you're truthful, show the evidence. Bring the book. وَجَعَلُوا بَيْنَهُ وَبَيْنَ الْجِنَّةِ نَسَبًا. They went one step further, and they made a lineage between Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the jinn. And they claimed that Allah married amongst the jinn. وَلَقَدْ عَلِمَتِ الْجِنَّةُ إِنَّهُمْ لَمُحْضَرُونَ. And the jinn that supported this belief amongst people during the times of Sulaiman alayhi salam and afterwards, they know they're going to be brought Yawm al-Qiyamah and questioned for this. Subhanallah amma yasifun. That's the answer. The answer to all of these claims. لِرَبِّكَ الْبَنَاتُ وَلَهُمُ الْبَنُونَ أَصْطَفَى الْبَنَاتِ عَلَى الْبَنِينَ جَعَلُوا بَيْنَهُ وَبَيْنَ الْجِنَّةِ نَسَبًا. All of these claims that you're talking about something you don't understand, you're putting your nose into ghaib where you don't have any space to do that. The answer to all of it, Subhanallah amma yasifun. Exalted Allah is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from what they claim about Him. And then for the fourth time in the surah, إِلَّا عِبَادَ اللَّهِ الْمُخْلَصِينَ. Except Allah's chosen servants. Except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's chosen servants, they would never say anything like that. They wouldn't. This repetition of the same verse 4 times and a fifth time that we're going to recite in a moment. عِبَادَ اللَّهِ الْمُخْلَصِينَ. Allah's chosen servants, whom He chose for Himself, whom He granted sincerity in their hearts. He gave it to them, subhanahu wa ta'ala. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us sincerity and grant us and choose us. Make us amongst those who are chosen. In the Quran, there's nothing more beautiful than when He says, إِنَّهُ مِنْ عِبَادِنَا الْمُخْلَصِينَ. He's amongst our servants whom we've chosen for ourselves. We've chosen to be sincere to us and to be. This is what you spend all of Ramadan hoping for. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us that, inshallah. We continue with the last piece. Now, what we're going to read is the response of the malaika. All right, we're going to read what the malaika say in response, because the surah began with them. وَالصَّافَّاتِ صَفًّا. It began talking about the malaika and their relationship with. They're a part of ghaib that we don't understand, and we only know what Allah tells us. So we get to hear them speak, and here's a few. These verses are what they have to say. فَإِنَّكُمْ وَمَا تَعْبُدُونَ مَا أَنْتُمْ عَلَيْهِ بِفَاتِنِينَ إِلَّا مَنْ هُوَ صَالِ الْجَحِيمِ وَمَا مِنَّا إِلَّا لَهُ مَقَامٌ مَعْلُومٌ وَإِنَّا لَنَحْنُ الصَّافُّونَ وَإِنَّا لَنَحْنُ الْمُسَبِّحُونَ وَإِن كَانُوا لَيَقُولُونَ لَوْ أَنَّ عِندَنَا ذِكْرًا مِّنَ الْأَوَّلِينَ لَكُنَّا عِبَادَ اللَّهِ الْمُخْلَصِينَ فَكَفَرُوا بِهِ فَسَوْفَ يَعْلَمُونَ. So these are the words of the malaika. فَإِنَّكُمْ وَمَا تَعْبُدُونَ. The malaika turn to those who make all this up, who claim that they are female and they are genderless really. And they claim that they are the daughters of God when they are not. The claims that people make about that which they don't understand. So the malaika respond, فَإِنَّكُمْ وَمَا تَعْبُدُونَ. Indeed you, they're speaking to the pagans or those who make this up. وَمَا تَعْبُدُونَ. And all that which you choose to worship aside from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. مَا أَنْتُمْ عَلَيْهِ بِفَاتِنِينَ إِلَّا مَنْ هُوَ صَالِ الْجَحِيمِ. You are not capable to misguide anyone with this information or with this approach, except those who have the tendency or those who want to go to Jahim, وَالْعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ. Those who choose for themselves to go to the hellfire. Sali al-Jahim, al-Sali is someone who is going to enter a certain place in a way that is not, that lacks integrity and that lacks dignity. It's not a dignified entrance. إِلَّا مَنْ هُوَ صَالِ الْجَحِيمِ. The only people that you're capable of misguiding with this, al-fitna fatinin, is to misguide someone, to test them, to bring them something that is untrue, and then to get them to actually go in the wrong direction. So you're not capable of harming people with this, except those who have made their choice that they're going to go to Jahim. وَمَا مِنَّا إِلَّا لَهُ مَقَامٌ مَعْلُومٌ. And none of us amongst the malaika exist except we have a very known position and station. Al-maqam is a station. Ma'loom, that is well known. We know exactly where we stand from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we have a very clear job that we have to do. What is that maqam ma'loom? We don't know. I don't know what it is, but they do. I don't know what the maqam ma'loom for every malak. I don't know their names. I don't know exactly what they do. I know that some of them Saffat, and some of them Zajirat, and some of them Taliyat. You go through the Quran, you see a few more descriptions of them, whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala offers. But they know that each and every one of them, lahu maqamun ma'loom, a very known station, a job that they are doing. Just because I don't know it and you don't know it doesn't mean that it's not real. It doesn't mean that it's not well known. It's just not well known to us. And you have to be comfortable with that ignorance. You have to be comfortable with not knowing this. It's okay. It's not something that's going to affect you, and it's not something that you're required to know, and it doesn't really do anything for your journey. وَإِنَّا لَنَحْنُ الصَّافُونَ. And indeed, we are the ones who stand in ranks in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to worship Him and serve Him. وَإِنَّا لَنَحْنُ الْمُسَبِّحُونَ. Indeed, we are the ones who would continue to exalt Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with our words. Again, tasbih. Again, the same theme being brought back into again. Even the malaika perform it. You would think the malaika don't need to. No, they do. Because Allah is ghaib to them too. Just like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is ghaib to us, Allah is also ghaib to them. Even though they are much more connected, even though it's much more clear to them, but still the essence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is still, no creation can understand the essence of God. If you could, then He wouldn't be God anymore. He is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because His essence is unknown to the mind of the mortal, to the finite. We can't figure. That's why for them, وَإِنَّا لَنَحْنُ الْمُسَبِّحُونَ. We also exalt Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَإِن كَانُوا لَيَقُولُونَ. Indeed, these pagans who are making all this up would continuously say, لَوْ أَنَّ عِنْدَنَا ذِكْرًا مِنَ الْأَوَّلِينَ. If we had some degree of, if we had a remembrance, if we had a revelation, something to teach us, مِنَ الْأَوَّلِينَ, that was given to the previous nations, like if we also received a book, like all the other nations received a book, لَكُنَّا عِبَادَ اللَّهِ الْمُخْلَصِينَ. We would have been amongst the chosen servants. You don't know that. You don't know that. You don't know what you would have been if Allah gave you. You don't know anything. What do you know? If you were to go back and live with the Prophet ﷺ, what would you have been? Do you know what you would have been? Can you say with certainty who you would have been? I mean, you could be Abu Bakr maybe, or Abu Jahl. I don't know. We hope. We make dua that if we were to live back then, that we would have been with the Prophet ﷺ. But we don't know that. We don't know. What you do know is what you have right now and what you're doing with it right now. Which is why they said, فَكَفَرُوا بِهِ فَسَوْفَ يَعْلَمُونَ. You have something right now, you have refused it, so you will find out Yawm al-Qiyamah whether you would have been something different and what you're going to get for it. See, the malaika have this wisdom. The malaika know that. What are you talking about? Why are you talking about ghaib? Why are you saying law anna indana? Law, you don't use law. I don't use law. Allah uses law. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses if. Law is for Him subhanahu wa ta'ala. No one else can use that. So when they say law anna indana dhikran min al-awwalin, if we were given something, if we received revelation, we would have been amongst Allah's chosen. You don't know that. You have no knowledge to support. Don't make a hypothesis and then give us the conclusion and tell us what would have been. Where did you get this knowledge from? Only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can say, "Lo, had this happened, this would have been the outcome." Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the omniscient and He knows all. But the human being does not. So don't make a hypothesis and then support it based on what? That's what they said. So the malaika know that. Lo anna, they're using this. When you show disrespect to ghaib, it doesn't stop anywhere. Once it starts somewhere, it continues. If you're willing to make up ideas, thoughts, draw conclusions about ghaib without sultan moving, without clarity, you will do it everywhere. You will make the vision, the image of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala something that suits you instead of what it actually is. You will make the image, you will make the concept of Jannah and Nar whatever suits you, not exactly what it is. You will make the image of yourself, Yawm al-Qiyamah, what you want it to be, not what it is. And that delusion is the scariest thing that exists in this world. Because if you build a narrative that is delusional, Yawm al-Qiyamah, you're going to be very disappointed. You're going to be very upset because you're going to find that all of it is wrong. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is who He is, not who you want Him to be. The story of our existence as human beings is what it is, not what we want it to be. Not what we hope it to be, not what we wished it was. No, it has a reality. I am who I am, not who I want to be. Maybe I want to be, my nafs wants to be something different. I am who I am, a servant. I'm extremely humble in my origin, and I always will be. And I'm facing a severe punishment if I don't change my ways, and a potential reward if I do. And that is the story. Be careful. See, the malaika know, if you start making things up, there's no end to what you'll make up. They say, لو أن عندنا ذكرا من الأولين لكنا عباد الله المخلصين. No, you don't know that. And look what you have right now. Look what the Prophet ﷺ, فَكَفَرُوا بِهِ, and you've refused the revelation that you have. فَسَوْفَ يَعْلَمُونَ. You'll know for sure. يوم القيامة, it'll be taught to you. And that is the response of the malaika. All right. To be merciful, I'll leave this last piece, inshallah, to next Saturday, inshallah. We'll go through the last piece of Surat Al-Saffat next Saturday, and we'll do like a little bit of a final reminder about Ramadan, inshallah ta'ala, at that last morning. Subhanallah bihamdik, shanu la ilaha illa anta, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Wa sallallahu wa sallam wa baraka ala nabiyyina wa habibina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in.